Speaker Mike Johnson says the House will vote next week on that bill to force the Justice Department to release its records related to Epstein. Republican Congressman Mike Haridopolos of Florida is here for more on that and what's next for Congress after the shutdown. Congressman, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
So you say you support releasing the Epstein files, but you didn't sign the discharge petition to force a vote. Why not?
Well, it's pretty simple. As you know, for 4 years, the Democrats had this opportunity and they did absolutely nothing. Suddenly they found religion. But what we have actually been doing in the last 10 months is going through all these files, using James Comer, our committee chairman, going through all the files and make sure that the innocent are protected. Now that the discharge position's on the floor, of course, we're going to vote yes to open this thing up. But let's be clear here. The Democrats for 4 years did absolutely nothing where people were clamoring for this information. Now suddenly they find religion. And then they use, of all people, Epstein himself in some BS email about the president. Alan Dershowitz, the Epstein lawyer, who is now free on the attorney-client privilege type situation, said Trump had absolutely nothing to do with this scumbag. That's that simple. And so, yes, the Democrats are playing politics. Welcome to Washington. They've been doing it for the last 43 days. And yes, we're going to have a vote on this. But we've been doing the due diligence and making sure the people who are innocent are not going to be put out in the press like they had some kind of interactions with this known child molester, just basically scumbag who's trying to make allegations against our great president.
So you will vote in favor of forcing the release of the documents?
I'm comfortable with that at this point because we're going to be forced to do it. But I think you should always protect people who are innocent in these situations. And you have to ask the Democrats, why didn't they do this for 4 years? They had this opportunity for 4 years. I'm a new member of Congress, and we're working on issues that really matter to people, like reducing gas prices, which we have, securing the border, which we have, having a record stock market because people are confident again in the American economy. But the Democrats are really good at politics. I'll give them that. But it's a shame they decided to keep the government shut down for 43 days. And as you just mentioned in your previous report, people are struggling at airports because they wanted to play politics with people's lives.
Sources tell ABC News top administration officials met with Congresswoman Lauren Boebert yesterday to try to get her to remove her name from the petition to release the files. Have you had any conversations with the administration about this vote?
Not a single conversation about this issue at all.
Speaker Johnson, talking about the shutdown, he said he was surprised and very frustrated by a last-minute ad in that funding bill that lets senators sue if their phone records are investigated without their knowledge. Under the rule, taxpayers could be on the hook for up to $500,000 per account. That's Johnson's frustration. I know you voted for the bill, but do you share the Speaker's frustration on that?
I do. I think the Speaker is going to have a conversation, as I understand it, with the Majority Leader to see if we can readdress that issue. What they did with the Operation Arctic Frost was terrifying. You think about how the government can spy on people. Here they are spying on United States senators. And this person who authorized this should be prosecuted to the fullest extent possible. It just shows to the extreme that the Biden administration was working to try to undercut the agenda that we were elected to do back in 2024. And so I think these folks have the right to go to court and challenge this, but putting in an appropriation bill, I know the Speaker has some concerns about that, and I think that's why we're going to have a readdress that situation next week.
When you came on the show at the beginning of the shutdown, you said you were happy to have a conversation about extending Obamacare subsidies, just not during a shutdown. So now that the shutdown is over, would you support extending those subsidies?
Well, not in its current form. For the viewers who don't know, right now, over 35% of the people who are on Obamacare did not use a single service with Obamacare. I mean, they didn't get a script filled, they didn't see their general practitioner, and yet the insurance company got the full payment for that individual. So there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse as we exposed the Medicaid program back in July when we passed the big bill. What I think the biggest thing we need to do is look at the program and understand how we can reduce the cost and help those 22 million people who are on Obamacare. But the bigger picture here, I think, is this. There are 165 million people who pay for all of their insurance out of their own pocket after taxes, and they also subsidize Obamacare. We need to focus on those individuals because when you drive down those costs to 165 million people, you help everybody, including Obamacare beneficiaries. So first things first, we can't just simply rubber stamp a broken program. And if 35% of the people did not use one single service, and as you know, the dollars go directly to insurance companies. There should be some reforms as opposed to just saying, hey, let's continue the status quo. It's like fixing up a car that's simply not working well and not addressing the underlying problems.
If the Senate passes a bill to extend those subsidies, do you think the Speaker should bring it to the House for a vote?
Well, first of all, I think the Senate is going to take a close look, just like I'm calling for, to make sure that you take on waste and fraud. You're seeing people really game the system. And remember, this is about a fairness issue. When people are paying $1,500 a month for a family of four, where I live in Central Florida, out of their own pocket for insurance, and they're also paying taxes to subsidize people who are getting lower cost insurance, in many cases literally paying zero for, this is called zero-based beneficiaries, there needs to be some accountability there. And we should ask the question, what's going on where people aren't even using the service and we give money directly to insurance companies? So I don't think the Senate's just going to rubber stamp a system that has been exposed to being fraudulent, or at the very least have some income verification checks to make sure people truly in need get this assistance, as opposed to some of the games being played.
All right, Republican Congressman Mike Haridopolos of Florida, we appreciate your time today, sir. Thank you.
Great to see you again. Thanks for the opportunity.